As you can tell from some of my recent videos, I've been having trouble with this front mower tire coming off the rim. It's happened several times this summer, so I decided it was time to replace it because I think it's actually the wheel itself that may be bent. The OEM tire and wheel assembly is pretty expensive, right around $100. A few viewers suggested I look into flat free tires instead, and I found a set for about $50, so it's definitely worth a try. The key to finding a generic set that fits your mower is paying attention to the tire and the wheel size. In my case, the factory setup uses an 11-inch tire and a 4-inch rim, so I'm looking for an 11x4 tire. These flat-free wheels are designed to fit 11x4 and 11x5 applications, so they should work perfectly. In this video, I'll show you how to install them and walk you through a few obstacles I ran into along the way. So first, I placed my order with Amazon and they got it to me in 2 days. And at first glance, they seem to be the right size, so we are off to a good start. And apparently they passed the sniff test as well. After unboxing the new tires, I immediately spotted our first potential obstacle. They came with a whole bunch of bearings and spacers, and there's already a set of bearings installed on the wheels. My guess is that if you found this video through a search, you're probably wondering how to remove and install those bearings. Don't worry, we'll get to that in just a minute. But first, let's get these old tires off. I'll start by finding a flat spot on the mower's front frame crossmember, then I'll place a piece of wood against it so my 2-ton floor jack doesn't scratch the paint, and lift the front tire mower just enough to get the tires off the ground. By the way, I picked this little jack up from Harbor Freight a long time ago, and I've ended up using it way more than I thought it would. It definitely comes in handy. To remove this bolt, I use a deep socket on the nut side to keep it from spinning, and another socket on my impact driver to back the bolt out. Once I get the wheel off, I can immediately see that the bearings installed on the new tires are way too big, but since the axle bolt doesn't actually ride directly on the bearings, we first need to take out the bearing spacer sleeve from the old wheel to figure out which replacement bearings we need to install. And if you're wondering what this sleeve does, it sits between the two bearings and gives the axle bolt something solid to tighten against, preventing the bearings from being crushed when the bolt is tightened. Alright, I think these are the correct bearings. There should be 2 more of the same size in the packaging for the other tire. And now for the fun part, or not, getting the bearings out of the tire. This video won't show all the trial and error, but trust me, I tried several different tools to get these bearings out and spent a good amount of time. You'll get the benefit of edits. But what finally worked for me was a long piece of rebar and a 2-pound sledgehammer. I'm sure there's a better tool for this, but sometimes you gotta work with what you got. My method was simple. Give it a whack, rotate about a quarter turn around the bearing, and give it another whack. Keep repeating that process, and eventually you'll feel the bearing break loose and pop right out. Now that we have that bearing out, we'll repeat the same process for the other bearing. One thing to keep in mind, these wheels do come with a grease zerk installed, so as you're making your quarter turns around the bearing, be careful not to land on the zerk and damage it. Now it's time to install the new bearing. Ideally, you'd put a light coat of grease or anti-seize inside the wheel bore before you start, then get the bearing lined up as straight as possible. The key here is to make sure you only apply force to the outer race of the bearing. Never hit the inner race because that force gets transferred through the ball bearing and can damage the bearing before you ever use it. I used a socket for this and made sure I was only contacting the outer edge of the bearing. Then I gently tapped it until it was fully seated. Again, there are definitely better tools for the job like a bearing driver or a press, but this was all I had without much planning. After working with it for a little bit, I finally got the bearing fully seated. Then I repeated the same process on the other side, and now this wheel is ready to be installed. Of course, I did the same thing to the other wheel, but there's no need to show it here. I think you get the idea. To get the wheel installed, we first need to slide the bearing spacer sleeve back into place. Then it's just a matter of figuring out how many of the included spacers are needed to keep the wheel centered in the caster fork. I ended up using 2 spacers on each side. The tricky part is keeping everything lined up while you hold the wheel, the spacers, and the sleeve in place and try to slide the bolt through. Once the bolt is in, we can tighten everything down and the wheel is installed. There's still a very small amount of side-to-side play, but not enough to fit another spacer. If it ends up giving me any trouble, I think adding a standard washer on each side would tighten it up perfectly. But honestly, a little bit of play should be perfectly fine because even this original OEM wheel had about the same amount of movement. I went ahead and installed the other wheel off camera, and now we've upgraded this mower from inflatable tires that kept giving us problems to a set of flat free tires that should hopefully be trouble free for a long time. If you found this video helpful, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. I'll leave a link to these same tires down in the description in case you want to check them out for yourself. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.